Yes, I fully complied with every rule that I was governed by. I did not email any classified material to anyone on my email. There is no classified material. So I'm certainly well aware of the classification requirements and did not send classified material.
So Hillary Clinton insisting she played by the rules. Can her explanation hold up? Karl Rove, senior White House advisor to President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. Karl, good morning to you. Austin, Texas, live this morning. She came out and said, I'm going to make 4 statements here, okay? Number one, let's take them piece by piece and give your opinion here. I opted for convenience to use my personal email. You heard me ask Chris Direwalt about that. Is that sufficient or not in your view?
No, she's governed by rules of the State Department issued in 2005, updated in 2009, further modified in 2011. Look, there are lots of conflicting rules. At the White House, I had to carry 4 devices, 2 different PDAs and 2 different phones, because anything that was political had to be on an RNC account. But we were told right from the beginning these would be presidential records and were periodically swept and added to the database.
So you don't buy the excuse that it was convenient? Is that what you're saying?
No,
that's the case. Why would she do that then? Why would she have her own server in her house? What was the function for that? What were they thinking?
So she could have private conversations with her wide-ranging group of advisors in and out of government over subjects that she didn't want to be part of the public record.
Simply put. All right, number 2 then. They were captured, all of her emails, and preserved immediately on the system of the State Department, suggesting you could go to the State Department server and get her emails. Does that fly?
No, because, look, for example, we do know what this private account was discovered by a hack of Sidney Blumenthal, an outside advisor who was sending her advice on how to handle Benghazi. And that was not captured by the State Department server. That was captured by the hacker and who hacked Sidney Blumenthal. So the question is, what other kind of advice and counsel was she getting from outside people about how to handle these items? And also, what is the definition of personal? She may have been receiving, quote, personal advice from some of her State Department aides like Uma Abedin through the private system and chose not to consider those, quote, governmental because it was, quote, private and personal advice, when in reality it had to do with her official duties.
And what is the issue now? Because she says, I took my personal stuff and deleted it.
Well, who gets to determine what's personal or not? Sidney Blumenthal sends her advice about how to handle Benghazi. It has an impact on whether or not, on how she handles that issue. Did she consider that personal or did she consider it governmental? It sounds like she's being very narrow in this and basically saying if somebody from the State Department wrote me or I wrote somebody at the State Department and I considered it governmental, not personal, then I included it in the 30,000 emails that I gave to the government. But if I considered it, quote, personal, I didn't. So she's the judge of what's personal and what's governmental, which is not the way it should be. Either somebody neutral ought to do it or you ought to all toss it all in.
Then we need to get to where this goes now in 30 seconds or less. Trey Gowdy says he doesn't have subpoena power. That's not his authority in his committee. What happens now? Do you separate the believers from the non-believers and go forward? What, Karl?
Well, look, there is a limit on congressional authority to go after a private server, but I think he is maybe looking for a way to get at it. Remember, she has that iconic photograph of her on her way to Libya, and yet there are no emails from that period that have been surrendered to the committee about Libya and Benghazi. So there is a real question as to whether or not she has been completely forthcoming with all of the material that is really, truly governmental in nature.
And Gowdy's already said
touches on her official responsibility.
There are months and months missing, was his quote from last week. Karl, thank you. Much more to talk about this, and we'll get to what matters very soon. Karl, thank you from Austin, Texas. Here's Martha.